Well, friends, here it is, the news that sent nervous tremors through global politics. Trump is back in the game, and this time, with a statement so bold that even the most resilient European bureaucrats nearly jumped out of their seats. So, what did he do? Nothing extraordinary, just with the cold-blooded precision of a seasoned surgeon, announced that America will no longer carry this conflict alone. The expired president, of course, froze in bewilderment, while Europe, as expected, stood in awkward silence. And then Trump steps onto the stage, like a thunderclap on a clear day, to set the record straight. A country that has dutifully paid for other people's wars for decades suddenly says, enough. And what's most fascinating, it does so not just with dry political reasoning, but with historical severity. So, if anyone thought this was just another round of a long geopolitical chess game, it's time to rethink. Trump is breaking the usual patterns, and now this story will make a lot of people nervous. Buckle up, because the time has come to understand who is really making decisions here and who is just pretending to play along. But let's dig deeper. This decision is not just another political shakeup. It comes with an entire backstory. The expired president has been clinging to international support for months. And as unfortunate as it may sound, one Eastern European country simply won't survive without it. But here's the paradox. The more aid it receives, the more questions arise. And now, Trump says, enough. It's no secret that he has never viewed America as a charity fund, especially for Europe, which, in his opinion, could very well handle its own problems. America is not the world's ATM. This is not just a slogan, it's Trump's firm conviction. And now, with yet another escalation of war in that same Eastern European country and Western aid becoming something of a subscription service, Trump decides it's time to restore order. In his eyes, this is not a humanitarian crisis, but a threat to the American budget. And just as suddenly, the immigration issue takes center stage. The program that provided refugees with a safe passage to the United States is now shut down. And behind this decision stands none other than Trump's fundamental principle: America first. This decision has shocked not only Europe, but also many Americans. Under Biden's presidency, this program was seen as a kind of lifeline. But now that's it, no more. It's time to focus on protecting America's borders and its own security, rather than solving other people's problems. And now, the main question remains, what will happen to that Eastern European country if America really cuts off its aid? Trump, as always, didn't bother with pleasantries and drew a clear line. Everything concerning that country is now Europe's problem. America is no longer willing to pull everyone out of the hole they dug themselves into. And in this story, the key factor is not just Trump himself, but also his entire approach to international politics. For him, it's simple. Eastern European crises are Europe's problem, not America's. He made it clear that EU countries must take responsibility, and that the US is no longer obligated to sponsor foreign wars. Well, was that an unexpected turn? The question of what to do next with a certain Eastern European country has suddenly become central to Trump's strategy. He started by shutting down the refugee program and is now openly stating, it's time for these people to handle their own war. And if we're being honest, there is a certain, albeit harsh, logic in his words. Yes, this country is fighting for its survival, but the West has long understood that endless support is not a given. Now, the main issue is no longer how America will continue helping, but how to force Europe to finally step out of its cozy comfort zone and take responsibility. And this is where things get interesting. Is Europe ready to act like an adult and pay for this banquet itself? Let's break down the steps Trump has taken and what he plans to do next. The suspension of the Unity program for one Eastern European country wasn't just another sensational headline. It was a real blow to thousands of people who had hoped to find refuge in the US. Since its launch, more than 117,000 people have taken advantage of this opportunity. But now, the door is closed. But Trump didn't stop there. Another major step was freezing a significant portion of humanitarian and civil aid, including economic support and peace programs. If anyone thought this was just a bargaining chip to pressure Europe, they were mistaken. Trump went further and imposed a 90-day moratorium on nearly all foreign aid programs, including civil assistance. And this isn't just a bureaucratic move. It's a real crisis, not only for Kiev, but for everyone who relied on American funds. Because, like it or not, the US has long been the safety rope preventing a certain Eastern European country from plunging into financial collapse. But that's not all. Brussels took a hit too. Trump openly states that Ursula von der Leyen and her team are simply failing. According to him, the European Union is incapable of making any coherent strategic decisions regarding this conflict. In his view, Europe benefits from maintaining chaos, while America is expected to foot the bill. And he didn't just imply this. He outright accused Brussels of drowning in bureaucratic red tape and failing to solve a single real issue. And here we arrive at Trump's main argument, which he has repeated for years. The United States should not be the bank that pays for everything and everyone. His position is simple and clear. Europe must finance this conflict itself, instead of relying on America's generosity. And his words are backed by numbers. Over the years of war, the US has sent billions of dollars in military and humanitarian aid. But inside America, the question is growing louder. Why is this money funding foreign wars instead of rebuilding America's own infrastructure? Trump, as always, didn't hold back and reminded the world that America has already sent more than $30 billion in military aid to a certain Eastern European country. And now, a little riddle. How is American infrastructure doing in the meantime? That's right, not great. And of course, he couldn't pass up his favorite topic, the complete incompetence of the European Union in managing this conflict. In Trump's view, the European Commission has long been incapable of formulating any kind of unified strategy, and all their so-called organized efforts resemble nothing more than a theatrical performance in the style of, "We clap, but we do nothing." Meanwhile, the expired president clearly understands that if America slows down its support, Europe will have a hard time. So, wasting no time, he rushed to meet with Emmanuel Macron to discuss the next steps. And here begins the classic game. Please continue helping. We are your strategic partners. In the same vein, he hints that Europe must strengthen sanctions against Russia and further increase military aid. Because, of course, if you're going to invest in war, you might as well go all in. But not so fast. While the expired president dreams of a rescue plan that will not only keep his country afloat, but also secure its status as an important player on the international stage, Trump once again storms the airwaves, throwing a wrench into this entire diplomatic spectacle. Once again, he accuses the EU of complete inefficiency and even suggests that if Europe is so eager for this war, they should finance it themselves. And if they can't handle it, well, then Trump will be more than happy to discuss new rules of the game directly with Russia. Now, let's think for a moment. How much longer can European leaders pretend they have everything under control? They either agree to Trump's new course, or they once again find themselves in a situation where they desperately try to hold back the storm, hoping that, at the last moment, good old America will come to the rescue. But surprise, surprise, that moment has already arrived, and Washington is making it abundantly clear. No one is going to carry other people's burdens any longer. And now, we reach the climax. America is freezing aid, suspending civil programs, and, in general, slashing funding across the board. America first in action. Now, everything depends on Europe. Either they truly take responsibility, or they continue hoping for a miracle. But Trump has made it crystal clear. America is no longer their ATM. The situation is heating up. One Eastern European country is losing its key ally, the one that, until recently, was its main pillar of support. But now, everything is becoming painfully obvious. Relying solely on foreign aid is no longer an option. Now, the biggest question remains, what happens next? Trump has issued a harsh ultimatum, and it looks like this ultimatum will be the decisive one. For the European Union, this is no longer just another political scandal. It's a full-on blow to their pride, ambitions, and, of course, their budget. Now, Brussels faces a magnificent choice. Either take control of the situation and finally feel the weight of responsibility for the war, or get into a conflict with Trump, risking undermining unity within the EU and weakening its global standing. And here it is, that pivotal moment. Decisions are now being made not only across the ocean, but in the heart of the old world itself. The main question, what lies ahead for one Eastern European country in Europe after this dramatic turn? Will it be, as Brussels dreams, a liberation from American dominance? Or will Trump, as promised, pull the blanket over himself and burden Europe with an unbearable load, forcing it to finance the war on its own? The political heat is rising, the stakes are growing, and the EU has found itself in a very tough spot. Trump has made it clear. America will no longer passively sit in the background, handing out money and solving other people's problems. He's freezing aid to one Eastern European country, and the EU must decide, either take full responsibility or watch as the situation in that country continues to spiral into the abyss. At the same time, their own political influence on the world stage is becoming increasingly diluted. For one Eastern European country, the consequences are even worse. The loss of significant American support is not just an economic blow, it's a matter of survival, especially when it comes to security. Without a steady flow of Western resources, Kyiv will find it incredibly difficult to maintain its defense and continue resisting Russian aggression. But the expired president, of course, is not giving up. He's actively trying to rebuild relations with European leaders because, in essence, he has no other choice. However, let's be realistic. Europe is certainly not ready to simply abandon one Eastern European country, but now it will have to weigh every decision carefully. The time for grand statements about European solidarity is fading into the past. And here, Brussels faces its own crisis. Fragmented positions within EU countries, endless bureaucracy. And now, not only is there no unified decision, there's not even a clear understanding of what to do next. In the end, what everyone feared the most happens. America steps aside, and Europe is left to carry the weight of the war on its shoulders. The only question now is Europe ready for such a scenario? Does it have enough resolve and resources to play the leading role in resolving the conflict? When even within the EU, there's no unified opinion? We'll get the answers to these questions in the near future, but one thing is already clear. This conflict will drag on, and Europe will find itself in even greater political uncertainty. Trump has spoken. Now, as always, it's time for Europe to pay the bill. America is no longer going to solve other people's problems, and Europe must either shoulder this burden or admit that its influence isn't as great as it would like to believe. Meanwhile, the expired president and his team find themselves in a very awkward position. Dependence on Western aid is hanging by a thread, and the plan of receiving endless support has suddenly failed. Europe is now balancing on the edge of the abyss. Either it takes responsibility, or its internal unity will start to crack, leaving one Eastern European country face to face with reality. The question is simple. How much longer will Kyiv wait for the West to finally figure out its priorities? Time is running out, and if Europe doesn't act decisively, the consequences could be catastrophic. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Things are only going to get hotter from here.